to order at 7:03. We do have quorum. And Kat is the only board member who is not present. We expect her to join at some point. Hello. We were waiting for you, sort of. Can you hear us all right?
Just started.
All right. Fabulous. We just started. So now the gang's all here, and hopefully we see Susie in a little bit. We'll begin with the approval of last month's meeting minutes from August 19th. Does anybody have any questions or changes that they would like to suggest for those minutes? Seeing none, would anyone like to move to approve? Katie.
Oh, you need me to verbal. Sorry, I'm in another
Well, just recognize.
committee where we don't need verbal. So I think the city requires verbal.
Thank you.
I moved. I second.
Okay, that passes. Are there any members of the public who would wish to be heard at this time? Seeing none, we will move on. New business. I volunteered for the icebreaker this month, and this month's icebreaker is about library cards. So September is library card sign up month, and the question is, what memory or anecdote might you share about your history with library cards? It could be a memory of your very first library card. Do you remember getting that and what was happening around it? Is it about a library card upgrade or snafu or something funny or unusual that has happened to you in your life around library cards? But that is the question. What would you like to share with the group around the significance of library cards in your life? I need to think. I can start. I remember getting my very first library card, and it was one of those things where you had to be old enough to print your name in order to qualify for the card. So it was a very big deal to me. I think I was 6 and had my own card and had my name printed on it, and boy did I think I was like a grown-up with having a card that, it wasn't plastic either, it was paper, like heavy manila, and it went in like a little slot in a wallet and everything like that. So I felt very grown having my own library card, and that that connection, that like I was being entrusted with something valuable, that continued throughout my whole life. Every time I moved, which was a lot when I was little and has been a lot as an adult, that's like the first thing I do when I move somewhere is I go to the public library and I get my library card, and then I feel like an official resident. And did that with my girls, brought them when they were young to get their first cards and made a big deal of them signing their names and so on, and taking on the responsibility of actually keeping track of the books. And so yes, I have very fond connections with the physicality of a library card.
I can go. I don't actually have memories of like being a kid and getting a library card. What I really remember was that little wand with the glowing red tip when they transitioned to barcodes. Like, it used to just be the cool stamp that you could set the date and everything, but the glowy wand, I wanted so badly to run that thing over the barcode. So I just vividly remember that as a kid. But in terms of library cards, I don't have a strong memory. I do still have my Boulder library card, even though I haven't lived in Boulder since I was in grad school in 2006. I don't know why, I just can't bring myself to get rid of it. If anything, I might like order a book that would be delivered to the Longmont Library. Like, I haven't even darkened the doors of the library over there in a long time because our library is so wonderful. But I do have very fond memories of sitting in that cafe that they have in the bridge walkway there, and I was doing a creative writing graduate program, so just writing and like people watching and getting ideas for characters, and it was just like a great spot to sit and observe the world.
She doesn't.
What happened?
Sorry, oh, you couldn't see it. So Susie was trying to join virtually, but she was on the wrong platform. She was trying to join via Teams, and so I apologize. I asked Tracy if she could email her and tell her that we're on Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably a creature of habit, because this is the only time Zoom is used in my work life is for this meeting, for some reason.
Thank you. I like that. I like thinking of you, Kat, being reluctant to part with an old card.
I definitely remember the laser. Didn't 50-50 chance it was going to scan it, and that was pretty. That was if you had a new one that worked. Those things never work. You always just typed it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're pretty dangerous too, because you can point it at people. It's a laser.
Or cats.
Yes, right.
I can go next. I don't really have any library card memories either, at least not any really old ones. I'm sure what we used in elementary school, and I don't remember. There probably was something and I don't remember. I also collect library cards, and you don't have to get rid of them because you can use them on Libby, and it'll help you move up your priority level faster. And so actually anytime when I'm in Colorado, when I go to a town I've never been to, I stop at their library, much to the annoyance of my family. So I can just move up the wait list on Libby. But I still have the Longmont library card when we first arrived in Longmont. I was not going to show it because it's in Florida. And look, flimsy it is. I mean, my daughters, like kids. I mean, I still have that bad boy. Love it.
Old school.
Okay, I have to admit I am not very partial to physical cards. I'm sorry, everyone who clearly has fond memories. I will say I brought both of my kids when they were like babies to get the little baby card at the Longmont Library. It was like, she had like a teddy bear, I think, so cute, and took photos and all that. And then since then, my husband set up like a wallet app with the cards, and so I can just scan my phone at the little checkout thing. I don't have to have a card, and mostly because I forget my card everywhere. But yeah, so I don't know if I have fond memories of library cards like in their physical form. However, the actual getting the number that allows you to get more books out of the library is awesome. So like every time we add a baby to the family, it's like, yeah, we have more holds that we can put on for books. So.
Me too. That's why I have the physical cards right here at my desk, because I don't keep them in my wallet. I just go on my phone.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody want to answer who has an answer? Not really.
Mine's very different.
It's okay.
It's not it's more from this side of library card land. So a good friend of mine works for Los Angeles Public Library, and they've been doing this for years now, where they commission an artist and they do these custom special release cards. And that inspired me when I worked in Englewood, and a relative of my wife's is a street artist, and so I commissioned him to design a library card there. So I was like, I'm gonna do this too. And it was really fun. I still like it. I ended up rebranding that library. That we ended up just using that as the image of the library in that case. But anyway, it's something I would like to do something like that here. It could even be in that form, or it could be like a public, an art public places type thing where there's some sort of content, you know what I mean, where people can submit, you know, and make it kind of an event and come up with cards like that. So something to look forward to at some point. Susie, we're sharing your library card memories, because it's library card sign up month. What, you know, whether it's a memory you have or just something you want to share about library cards, or not, since you're driving. We can't hear you anyway. Pass.
Okay, pass.
Should we pass for now?
You're on maybe mute?
Yeah, you're not showing muted, but you are. I'll let you work on that. Tracy?
I can't really remember like the very first card I got, but the one like memory I guess that came up for me was going back to the library I kind of grew up in, and I didn't have a physical card. I didn't actually check anything out, but kind of like seeing that library again through the eyes of being an adult. That just was like a really like strong memory. And it reminded me of the card I had, because it wasn't actually my card, it was my brother's card. But it was from that library. And it just had that like nostalgic feeling of like going back to your home library. So that was what I thought of first.
Thank you. And you know, as much as I like physical cards, at one point I did have my number memorized, because I was working in a library and just checking stuff out so much I would just type it in. I don't even know where the card was, but funny what you remember.
I would also, you know, Nicole mentioned not being a physical person, but for cards, I mean, I would like to get this library more in a digital wallet landscape, where it's not just having a picture of your card that you can scan, but a true digital wallet that, you know, you can download in some type of app that would do multiple things, like self-checkout and things. So that's in our future too, I would hope, or I'm planning.
I will say you can load up the number onto like I think it's like any wallet is the app or whatever, but only some of the checkout kiosks actually let you scan your phone. Like the ones that you have to put your card into the little slot, you can't quite, it won't read your phone. But the other two don't totally do. So I'm always like walking over from the children's section all the way back to the other section to scan my phone.
Does Google Wallet not take membership cards? Because I have Samsung Pay, and it allows me to put in like my Y membership and my library card are both in my Samsung Pay wallet. So I'm not sure that Google Wallet wouldn't allow it. But Nicole is right, it doesn't accept it as a kids one, you have to go over to the adult one.
Yeah.
I don't, I'll experiment with that and then report back to John, and then they can do a marketing campaign around that someday.
Yeah, you know, and that's one form, but you know, what I would like is a robust app that has that as a component, but that you also wouldn't even need a self-check machine. You just scan the book with your phone, with your digital wallet at the shelf, and you leave.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be nice.
And then, or you could use self-check, you know, or you could still do all the regular things, but yeah, that might be a stopgap thing. Like if Google or Apple Wallet could, you know, if we could do something where they could ingest our card and make it a true digital wallet, you know.
Well, another forward-thinking content, our next agenda item is an update on the library's strategic planning
Yeah. So on. Okay. I know I've mentioned this to this board that we were going to do a strategic planning retreat day. One of our assistant city managers, Sandy Cedar, who has some experience with this and a strategic planning, process, or anyway, it's a form of it. If you've done strategic planning, a lot of people do, a heavy planning with SWOT analysis and all this stuff. This is different. It's called appreciative inquiry. If you're not familiar with it, I may have talked about this a little bit here. It kind of changes how you approach a plan, which is much more from a, how do we see ourselves now and where do we want to see ourselves? You don't really get too much. It's much of more of an optimistic day because you kind of get to dream a little bit and imagine what it looks like in 5 years. But you still will formulate a plan with actual goals and action items, which I'll be working on after that day. But the way the day went, and Jamie was there to represent the board, and then I had my leadership team there and a couple other staff members that I wanted to invite to balance out the group. And we spent the day out at Sandstone and did a bunch of different exercises and activities that Susie guided us through. And at the end of that day, what was produced were about 6 or 7 high-level themes which could inform a structure of a plan. So there was a whole theme on programming, funding, spaces, outreach, internal, like staff resources, and then just big ideas. And I'll take these and kind of formulate these. It may not be 6 or 7, it might be 4 or 5, high-level areas, and then within those during the day, the team came up with action items. So how are we going to get to this big idea thing? So if one of them was spaces and ideas for new spaces, what actions would take place. So we're not really defining yet what's in year 1, 2, or 3, 4, or 5. That's something I'll kind of flush out. So I think it was a productive day in that sense, that it produced what I had hoped it would, which was getting the team to really think about that and work together and give at the very basic level, we haven't had a strategic plan in this library for as long as I can tell. I couldn't find one of any recent time. And so while staff are wonderful and people generally know what they should be doing day to day, we have no direction. We're not giving ourselves any direction or goals to achieve. So this will help, and I think help focus some of that, because I think as a still somewhat newer director here, just coming up on 2 years, what I do see is everyone wanting and desiring to do everything all at once, and that's impossible, so we have to prioritize what we're focusing on. And so what I would say to board members, when you have a chance in the next 10 to 12 days in the admin offices, we have the boardroom. We have met in there before when this conference room wasn't available. So for those of you online, if you want, you'll have to find time to come in here, but you can see these themes on these poster boards, and then there's a bunch of sticky notes, and you can look at those and read the statement of the big idea, and then all the action items that the team came up with in each of these categories. And then there's a bunch of sticky notes, and you can add, like, well, I would like to see this as well, or you could say, this is a great idea, you should definitely focus on whatever you want to say or not say on any or all of them. But I would encourage you to come in, and since it's in the admin area, just if you're able to come, just tell a staff member that you're a board member and you're coming to review the strategic planning materials. And I would love it if you did, and if I'm here, I'd love to talk to you about it, and I can explain more. I know it's a little hard for me to talk through it here, but do you have anything to add?
I think that's a pretty good overview. It was my first experience really seeing a group of staff interacting together in that kind of a way. So it was, I really was grateful for the opportunity to be able to listen in on that conversation and hear, you know, bless you, what's really alive for these staff members. What is, you know, what are they thinking about? What are their priorities? What have they seen and noticed over the past few years? I do have an appreciation for appreciative inquiry. You know, I like it as an approach. Sometimes I feel a little bit unsatisfied with not having had any overt conversation around potential obstacles, challenges, so forth. But, you know, I get why that's not the focus of a process and a day like that. So much good stuff, though, was generated. And I would just ask you, like, next steps for the board to know about. Where do you see this going and on what timeline?
Yeah, so part of the way this works, and then why I mentioned the poster boards that everyone came up with by the end of the day. So for the rest of the library staff, obviously, who couldn't be there at this retreat, they'll live in these posters will live in that boardroom for staff to have 2 weeks, and we've asked staff to spend, you know, at least 10, 15 minutes in there looking at it and seeing if they have anything to contribute or questions. That way everyone has a chance to have input in this. And it may, you know, it may change some of the priorities that people came up with, you know, because we also had to rank different things, and so it could be that changes that, and that would be good. After that 2-week period, then it really falls on me. It'll fall on me and probably my department heads first well, I'll take a step at it first. I like to give people some type of draft document to work from. I'll take the poster boards and all this stuff and try to put it into a very high level plan that then we can kind of work together and massage it out as a team. And then I'll take that to the larger leadership group that was involved in the retreat and flesh that a little bit more. And at least by the end of the year, now, I mean, hopefully it doesn't take us till December, but this will be a plan that's 2025 through 29. So, you know, we have a couple or so months here to get that finalized. And then once it is, it'll circle back here once I feel like staff have a final draft to this board to review and motion on to make sure the library board has a chance to do that side of what you need to do. And then after that, it's kind of in place starting in 2025, and we'll have our direction for that first year of what we'll do. It'll be up on the website. We'll make sure it's out there so everyone can see it.
And this informs a work plan for 2025,
Yeah.
more of the tactical applications.
Correct. Yeah. You know, and really every year, you know, we'll probably not just once a year, you know, I think it's a good idea to always check in. Where are we in the plan, you know, in any given year? But having the broader plan, it could be something that initially maybe we thought, well, this is something that's probably a good, like, year 3 kind of plan, right? In year 3, we can do that. The first 2 years is too soon. I mean, I'm trying to give an example, but you know what I mean? And so, but it could be something happens, you know, where, oh, we can do this thing in year 3 now because it makes sense because of whatever reason. So the plan's flexible enough to just say, no, we're taking this from year 3 or 4 and putting it into year 1 or 2 because the timing is right to do it. You know, let's say one of those things is getting our own vehicle so that we can have better efforts in outreach. Well, I right now I can tell you I wouldn't have that in there until probably year 2 or 3, just because of the time it takes to get those. But that, if it got moved up, it moves up. So that's all. If that makes sense. So I don't want to be tied to it year to year, but we have to have something
Right.
to start with.
It's a living document.
It's a living document.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions or want to know more about a particular area right now? All right. Well, appreciate the update, and as things develop, please report back to this group. I love strategic planning processes, and I love connecting them with other things. I love building a marketing or communications plan off of a strategic plan or a fundraising plan off of.
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunity for connection, and the more people who care about the library who can connect around this plan, you know, all of our energies are then directed in the same place, which can be quite powerful. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, we're into old business now. So last month we went through the bylaws and talked a little bit about our meeting structure and our schedule moving forward. And I believe maybe we mentioned the special funds that the library has access to, but we didn't really drill down into what they were and how they work. So Tracy, thank you, circulated the, there's a Word document that kind of gives an overview of the process for the library to spend out of those two funds. And I asked that everyone kind of look it over prior to tonight's meeting and then come ready with any questions or requests for clarification. Anything that might form a little discussion about it. So now is the time to bring those things up, or maybe, you know, it's all good and you want to move on. Let me know.
Just now realized what that acronym FOLL is, but I don't know if this is a document that is published someplace. I just now realized what it is, but it's the only place this acronym is in this document, and it's not ever explained.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, before our meeting began, I had asked if this was something that we could just edit a little bit to make it more useful for future years. So that's something we'll recommend.
I think, you know, my understanding of this document too is the board came up with this. I don't know, like, procedure-wise, what's required or not. You know, it's especially the detail here. Certainly, if I have something out of one of these funds I want to spend from, I do bring it to the board so that there is agreement of spending out of some of these funds. The amounts and stuff, I don't know that's, I don't know if that's really dictated anywhere. You know, there's different levels
I don't think
here.
that this would be the place for it.
Right. And then, you know, as a matter of process, you know, if you didn't know what happens, so if I, like earlier this year, I guess it was, I came to the board to spend out of the Mosher Fund for two things. One was to bring in 2 trainers for our all staff day, and then the other was to supplement our children's staffing for summer reading since they're very busy. So this board said, yep, we're good with that, motioned on it, and then any request of any fund has to go through an appropriation process which council has to sign off on at any time. It's normally not a discussion point unless there's questions. They just get a list of appropriations. So in case you weren't sure how that worked, Ivan, sorry, Kat, I have to.
Someday I'm gonna make him come to this meeting and pretend to be me along with me. I'm always pretending to be him. Just real quick, I feel like you said there was not a mention of the amounts, but it did, in the attachment, it did say procedures for the various amounts.
Right,
It was
but I mean
like-
the balance, like,
Okay.
how can we know how much there
No.
is.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Is that included in the, what is it, January and July update that it says we get?
So I asked for clarification around that too, and it sounds like
Okay.
those updates only happen when there are active requests for spending
Okay,
those funds.
Okay, I guess we could just put that on our note to self for July agenda, or January agenda.
But if
Reach
the
out.
library's
Could Susie? I mean, could Susie just find out? Like, I mean,
well, before Susie responds, I can tell you, I know roughly like the balance of some of these, so, you know, and that could be formalized even if I'm not requesting to spend, you know, once or twice a year, I could give an update of what those are at. I mean, the thing is the Mosher Fund is a trust, and so the library can spend only on interest accrued, which at the moment I think is still somewhere around $500,000. And then the other two, at least they have names on it, and it gets a little confusing, so I actually emailed someone from finance today to help get some clarification for me. But it basically seems to be a set amount, so like the Epsom Fund, which is mentioned somewhere, it seems that we get appropriated every year in the amount of, I think, $4,000 or $5,000. And then if we don't spend it, it doesn't carry over. We just get a new appropriation the next year, the same amount. That's what it looks like. Those are things I can clarify so that, for myself, for one, but then the board can have a little bit better understanding of that. So
yeah. And then, just for the benefit of the new folks, I mean, there are parameters on what each one can be used for. Like, one of them was supposed to be for sort of visually impaired access kind of stuff at one point, I remember, and we've sort of broadened that interpretation on occasion, but
well,
it's had to sort of relate back to certain things, right? I can't remember which one that is.
So that's the Mosher Fund, and yeah, I had some conversations internally with finance, but basically it says it should just be used to support library programs and services with hopes that it can specifically support visually impaired. You know, there's sort of this statement, like, if possible, that would be great too. That's kind of the way it's worded. That's the most specific thing we have out of any of these. The other funds are just whatever the library needs. It's just money that only that is direct funded. It's not a part of the general budget.
Okay.
So yeah. So so when I spent out of the Mosher for staff training, and it does it, but it's not really worded in a way that that's what it's for. I think there's just sort of a hope that we think about that when we're spending from that, and there's some goal with that. So you're right.
So the larger one had just sitting there in interest?
We can only wait.
I heard Katie ask if we can only spend the interest. Is that your question?
No, you had given your guesstimate on how much interest is available to spend in one of them, and it seemed like a very high amount. What was it?
That's the Mosher Fund, and that was I think it's around 500,000. And the reason I say that is, the initial trust was 1 point some million at one point. I think it's just over years. I don't know that it was obviously spent that much if there's that much interest there. That's accrued, and I don't know the rates. I don't know how that works, but yeah, that's I think what's there, and that accounts for what I've spent out of it, which was close to 7,000 for the West Plaza exterior book drop came out of that fund, and then the 2 trainers I brought in, plus the children's staffing for this summer, that was close to 30,000, but it was well over 500 when I did that. Like it was like 560 or 70. And
it's really high for just interest, and I'm wondering if, the trust could be written in a very loose fashion, of course, but I'm just wondering if the spirit of it was that I can't imagine that they would wanted it to be that high. Is there a reason? It sounds like it hasn't been used every year, at least not very much.
That's correct. I
Since
mean,
its inception.
from what I could tell when I got here, it wasn't spent out of at all.
Well, that's why I kind of asked about the purpose piece, because I think in the past, perhaps interpretations were tighter.
That could be. You know, and it kind of depends who's interpreting it, right? You know, so someone could have said, no, if you have to specifically do this thing, then maybe there were just no initiatives to support it at that level of detail.
I think that's a good theory, Pat. At the same time, you can't mention that the family wanted the funds sitting there not being used.
Right. Well, they fell into the hands of the right guy, let me tell you that.
Yeah, okay, that's what I like to hear.
Well, I'm having thoughts in this space too, because it has felt like, at least historically, there's been a more conservative approach to spending these funds. And so part of me was like, well, either the criteria must be fairly stringent, or you know, it's really only used for certain things. Like I wonder if you can say more about, you know, when you might, I mean, we have examples that you just gave us of when you might want to dip into that fund versus another source. But to kind of Katie's line of thinking, should we look at utilizing those funds, or at least the Mosher one, more where possible? Like, could that potentially have a negative impact on future requests for funding if, you know, you can look at what we've got and say, well, you got all this money sitting right here, why don't you spend that?
Right.
So
I think
I am remembering some conversations about that in the past with the board, basically saying like, we don't want to start making a lot of withdrawals from it, because then our case to the city for just funding us adequately is going to look less desperate, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, so I think there's certainly been conservative approaches, because, you know, if you just go down too far, you know, then you don't have it. But I think there's that. Kat, what you're saying, for one, but you know, a lot of things that sometimes get tricky, like a lot of things that I think I would like to do that it would be a good candidate for, those things maybe not be like one-time cost things, right? Like bringing in a trainer is a one-time cost, but you get into ongoing things, can that fund support it? Or do I need to make sure, so like, let's use a mobile app as a good example. I think that would be a great use of that fund to purchase, you know, or whatever it is, you know, some product that we could really enhance that our library in that way. So there'd be a one-time cost for that to buy it, but then there's an annual maintenance agreement. You know, what does that cost? And am I paying for that out of the fund every year, or do I need to figure out how to absorb that in the general budget? So it's much easier. So like the book drop and the trainers and the staffing were all one time, and then it's gone and it's done. But that's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to work that way. And especially if it's accruing interest every year, you could maybe just account for the fact that, all right, we're going to pay for this thing through here, and even maintenance will go through there because enough interest will accrue to cover it, and will still add to the fund. I don't know. But I'm just, I guess, saying that my mindset a little bit on this has been, well, if it's a one-time, I can do it, you know. And I fully intend to use this fund to get a vehicle for this library, but I still am trying to figure out what the ongoing cost is, and the fuel costs that we have to pay for, how much fuel are we going to do, and then, you know, just maintenance of the vehicle. But maybe it all could come out of there. That's the kind of things I need to look at.
Other thoughts or questions? All right, well, now we know what these funds are, and sort of some of the rules around them. Yeah, and maybe we will like January and July feel like good moments to just bring it up, right? Whether there's any active requests in play or not, just to at least once a year to check in and make sure that those funds are healthy and that we're all just conscious that, you know, they are available.
And it's also, I think, a good time and opportunity to talk through either things I have thought about that we could do, so that we could talk about it as a group, and then if other people have ideas, you know, like help with planning for that, rather than just like, oh, I can use this for that.
Be more proactive.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like it. All right, moving on to library budget update.
So the budget had its first reading with council last week. I think they're doing that again tomorrow, and Susie may have more to say about that if she's able to talk in her council update. From the library standpoint, the one update I have for you all that I didn't have last time. So one of the things, and if you happened to actually look at this, the 2025 budget plan is actually on the city website. If you went hunting for that for some reason, and if you did, you would have seen in there that the city. So I've talked to this group about. We've gone through it together, right? There's level 1 and level 2 requests. And level 1 requests are things that we have no control over. So like a percentage increase to a database subscription. And so those go in as a level 1 because I need to account for whatever percentage that's going to go up. Those were all approved. There was some question on that initially, but they approved all those that I had, which wasn't many, and it's not even that much money. Level 2 requests, which are they like, okay, we need more staffing, or we need blah, 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 the real asks. Not one department in the city got a level 2 request funded at all. So, I mean, unlike last year where some people did and the library didn't, this year nobody did. And in fact, that's because the city had I think basically a shortfall in the budget. It had to be balanced. That's what got presented to council. To get that shortfall, every department was asked to contribute something. What the library had was some vacancies that have been in our circulation department. They are carryovers from a while ago when part-time staff were benefited. And so those types of positions don't exist. Now part-time employees all go into sort of like, I just call it like a bucket, you know, and they call it temp wages, which is a little misleading because we hire part-time staff as staff. We don't think of them as temp, but at a city level, it's considered that. And so these vacancies have existed. There were about 6 of them. I think 3 of them were 3/4 positions and 3 of them were half-time positions. And so I was asked what I could do, and basically 3/4 of those positions went back to the city to help get the budget up to where it needed to go. And then what I did with the remaining, which basically I took the dollar value of all those part-time positions, which included benefits, and I basically had finance transfer those out of being vacancies right into a couple of our temp wages here in the library, meaning within the department. So children's who has historically been understaffed, the result of this is now they actually have real money that they can hire more staff at some point because they're not sitting as vacancies. I argued to keep them there. Basically, children's staff and circulation staff, mostly, every year, from what I could tell, they always overspend in those categories on their part-time staff. And the reason our budget never went over is because I had these vacancies, right? And so that protected the budget, the library's budget, from not going over in personnel. So it's sort of still the same thing. I don't have 0.75 of them anymore because I had to give those back to the city. But I did not want to leave the remaining as vacancies because if there's another need for money, they'll see vacancies and they'll want those too. So it's sort of the same difference. It looks like we have more money in some of these temp wage categories like in children's, and we do, but we have no padding if we were to go over. So we just have to be, we're pretty good about that anyway, for the most part, but for sure now, like not one department in this library can overspend on personnel because there really is no more vacancy padding to help protect that if it goes over, if that makes sense. So that's the biggest thing on the library's part of the budget that's new for this group since the last time we met. But yeah, it definitely. I thought last year was going to be bad enough when we didn't get anything approved because we were kind of, well, it ended up being in the election for the voters to vote on funding rather than it being a part of the budget process. So of course that didn't pass, so we got 0. I thought this year, but apparently the city has some budget shortfalls, I think, and then there's some uncertainty because of property tax issues that we all know about, and they were not quite sure about funding, so they were hesitant for sure to support any of these level 2s. So we won't get any additional staffing and no additional money for collections, anything that we ask for.
Sorry, I had to step out for a minute. John, you might have covered this, but did these similar sorts of requests come to every department or just certain departments?
I don't know if it went to literally every department, but it certainly went to a lot. Yeah, and so, like recreation, for example, I'm a little more familiar with since we're a part of recreation. They had a little bit of that, but their side of this was because they're a combination of revenue and general fund. They had to increase their revenue projection by a certain percent, that's going to be very impactful because the only way to increase that is probably increased rates or things like that it's already getting expensive for people. It's a vicious thing. Someone wants a rec pass, it's going to cost more probably. But then there's the equity issue of, well, the people who need the services we can't provide because we need to make more money now. So, there's different ways people had to contribute, I guess is my point. But it was definitely more than the library. We weren't singled out.
So the overall total for the budget is still reading as flat compared with 2024 levels.
Yeah, basically. It's going to look like a little bit more because of this vacancy thing, which didn't really show.
Right.
So now it's literally reflected in the budget, which makes the personnel look like it's more. But it's not.
Right.
So yes, to answer your question, it's the same, or I would argue with increased costs and things, it's less because we're trying to do the same things with the same amount of money. That's the story.
I wonder, maybe at a next month's meeting or at some point, could we have a couple of talking points about the differences with this year's budget? So what you just explained, I don't know that I could intelligently articulate that to another Longmont resident. It looks like we got more, but
yeah,
it's not real.
It's not an amount I think that anyone would see necessarily, or they're going to say it looks like the library got more. I don't think that's going to really be that much of a difference. I think to my eyes, it would be. I can't imagine anyone asking at that level of detail. But that being said, I'm happy to come back next month with just in general of talking points about the budget.
Yeah.
what the impact of that is going to be.
Especially thinking about, the friends and other individuals who may be interested in increasing donations or raising money, right? And talking to people about why they're fundraising for the library, what the need is, what is the budget, the gap that we're trying to bridge, and if anyone has questions, pertaining to the budget and what happened with this year's process, just like a couple of short ways of explaining the need. Because I know how to answer it in a 20-minute monologue, and I know how to dig through my notes and pull out, charts and graphs and stats that I've been presented with. But, if I'm having a conversation with a neighbor and explaining to them about something that the friends are doing to raise more money, then, how can I talk about it?
Okay. Susie, I see your hand up.
So, I'm able, mic go. So, I was having technological issues with and then plus I was trying to drive, so that probably wasn't very safe. But, and I had to pull up my notes, because I could not explain the whole budget issue, thoughtfully without some kind of notes, and even if I'm gonna try my best. So some of the things that, like why everybody got that level 1, nobody got to level 2. And the reason why, we're looking at the projections, their projections came out lower. So for example, we are $2.8 million less of property tax revenue. So then compared to the 2024 budget. And we have a lot of people who are appealing their property taxes. So that money is frozen. We're not receiving anything. We can't depend on it until we know what the county or the state, I don't know who assesses that, I think it's the state, to determine if their appeal is granted. And so in looking at the amount of appeals and the impact to our budget, and that's just for the property tax revenue. And then looking at other things like our storm drainage and our water tank, we had on the ballot, I believe in 2019, the ballot measure to replace the Nelson Flanders Price car, and gosh, there was another one too. So over by Nelson Flanders, and I think it was Montgomery tank. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm bad with this. So one of the tanks was so bad that we are going to have to close, shut it down, and then expand the other. So currently we do not have the revenues or the financial means right this time because of inflation, labor costs, and just the fact that everything's been going up in value. So the expansion to the Nelson Flanders is going to be put on hold. So there were other things that they kind of had to adjust and accommodate for in anticipation if these ballot measures, I believe there's 2 on this November ballot, if they pass, because it'll have a negative impact on our budget. And we cannot budget money in if we don't know, if it's, what I mean? So it's like we might be getting a certain amount of tax revenue for 2024, 2025, but we can't count on that to be ongoing, especially if these 2 ballot measures pass. So then the money that we get for, and I believe there's like a year lag, so the money that we're acquiring for property tax in 2024 will be reflected in the 2025 budget. And then whatever happens with that ballot measure, it's going to show up in 2026. I thought I I wrote that down somewhere. So it's like there's this lag that we're going to feel it, in a year or 2 years from now. So so a lot of it is just working in anticipation for worst case scenario. I think something that the museum, so I'm also on the advisory board for that. They so they have their capital campaign to expand the museum. However, they don't have the ongoing expenses now to cover staff or classes or anything that aside from what they got for the capital part, they're going to need some ongoing funding. So looking at, so one of the things I'm going to get together with Jeff, and I think Jeff is going to reach out to you, John, in looking at how not just expanding what the Friends, the capacity of the Friends of the Library, so maybe tapping into bigger donors to help support in that realm, or even if we do decide to move forward with another ballot measure, maybe the ballot measure is to do something with public safety, something that we know that will resonate with voters, that they feel is a necessity to cover, and then it'll free up general fund dollars to help offset. So just kind of looking at different ways that we can make, that we can fund our cultural division that includes the library and museum. I hope that helped clarify or did make more questions.
I mean, it helps me. I mean, I would almost, on some level, I really love at some point, and this is going to really be reflected in the strategic plan in different places, about the library being thought of as essential, not just this luxury and recreation and culture. And I could almost go as far as to argue that the benefits of the library, you could argue that we should be in public safety, because there's proven data that between education, which libraries are a part of, more educated is less crime rate. So why aren't we categorized in that sense and considered that important and not just a place for, anyway, I'm getting a little out of scope maybe of this.
Unit and neighborhood resources. So how can we rethink the library, and rather than it being under a recreation, that it's part of neighborhood and community resources division?
Or that, right.
So yeah.
I mean, it's worth some conversations. To your point about, rethinking, pivoting, whatever you want to call it, kind of being more proactive in how we are characterized in the narratives around the library, and not just a form of recreation.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that.
It's education, and that's the realm of neighborhood and community resources does.
Correct.
Who is the library? Neighborhood and community. So I think that's So I think looking at it from a different perspective, looking at it from a different lens, that maybe could help boost, bump the library up as far as priority goes. I've been thinking a lot about this.
Yeah, well, you can add some of these thoughts, Susie, to our strategic planning boards if you got in the meeting on time to hear my speech about our strategic planning. But if not, I'll follow up with you after.
Do that.
Yeah.
Do that. I tried on TV, so have an issue.
Did I cover it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know if anyone else had a chance to ask questions or.
Yeah. Anyone else have other budgety thoughts or questions about where this is going? yeah, it definitely feels like the time for, or the season for creative and innovative thinking. It has been since I got here in Longmont, at the library. That was the conversation, is where else can we look for revenue, and who else has capacity, and who can do what, and so on and so on. So I just think those are going to be ongoing for a while, but it was inspiring to see the museum pull together with their sunset soiree, and I wasn't able to be there, but if anybody was able to be there and wants to say something about what that event was like, I heard it raised quite a nice amount. And that wasn't even the ticket price to attend, it was the paddle raise or whatever that they did as part of the program. So, that's not something that this body is able to organize, but a group like the Friends could consider that, except, we would have to talk to them about their capacity. Which, if we're done with this agenda item, kind of leads into the next point, which I believe is last month we talked about having different kinds of touch points with the Friends and exploring maybe joint or collaborative meetings once or twice a year. And so I went to them at their meeting last month, and we talked about it, and because they're having their fall book sale this week, this did not feel like the moment for them to change their meeting schedule, but they would be open to coming to our next meeting in October, so that would be the 21st of October. And so what I'm proposing to this group is that be our first joint meeting. We could have them join us for part of the meeting. Say if we had some business that we wanted to handle beforehand, that would probably be the better way of doing it. Or we could have them join us for the entirety and adjust our agenda accordingly. And my thoughts around what we would do at that time is really just connect face to face, and B, talk about we have this common I won't say mission, but we have this common focus, we have this common love and reason for being, and that's the library. So what are ways that we can support one another in our different roles? What are ideas that maybe the different groups can take a piece of and move forward, but sort of like an exploratory conversation. So if that feels good to everyone, I don't know if it has to be a formal vote, but does anybody say, wait, I don't think next month is the right month to do this, or they have any other considerations they want to bring? Okay. So then I will formally invite them. And they typically have their meetings at 6:30. 6, that's right. They typically have their meetings at 6. So yeah, there was like a little when I said we meet at 7, do we even want to consider adjusting our time even by half an hour for next month? Or is that just going to make everything too complicated and messy?
I won't be here next month.
Okay.
At the normal date, so
That's the 21st, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I will be able to make that one.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea to adjust to 6:30 just in the, I mean, I'm sure it would be very appreciated on their part, but I think there's a lot of symbolism there as well of the two groups joining together. But I think it has to work for schedules. It works for mine, but I think that's a time for Cat, isn't it? Does it really matter?
I think a one-time thing I probably can pull off, and if it's becomes more regular, I don't know, it just depends on the kids' sports schedules and stuff, you know, if things evolve.
Right.
So, I mean, October, you know.
I think we all have to make sure, since Nicole knows she's not going to be here, we need to be able to make quorum. So we don't want to change it to 6:30 without being 100% sure that it works with everybody else's schedule.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it looks good now, but I can't say 100%.
Do you feel confident, Kat, though, that if we kept it at 7, you wouldn't have that question?
I mean, 7 just, I think it should be fine. I'm just saying, like, I guess if the whole thing hinges on me, that feels like a lot of pressure. I just don't know. With 3 kids, sometimes things come up. So
Yes.
I guess, yeah, it just seems, you know, 6:30s, I could probably make it work if it seems significant for them.
I mean, it's just, what do we talk about, twice a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
right
I
now,
think
I'm
it's,
just talking about next month.
Right,
Yeah.
I know, but I mean, it's not like this is an ongoing, it's ongoing, but not like every other month or.
No, we're not,
Yeah.
we're not talking about any other meeting except for the
I just want
21st.
to make sure.
And it's just a question of whether we think we could accommodate in that way. If it feels too tenuous, then we keep it at 7. They've already been briefed that we meet at 7. So,
is there any issue, like, just city-wise with us changing our meeting times? We've never done it before, in my memory.
As long as there's enough notice.
Okay.
It just has to be announced so that people know how it is.
Okay.
Just like when we've changed the day occasionally because of a holiday or something.
Oh,
Same-
yeah.
Same
Okay.
thing.
Susie, does it work for you? She's still there.
Yeah. It will work for me, I'll be there.
I think it looks like it works for me.
so why don't we say that we're gonna move forward with a joint meeting with the Friends Board on October 21st at 6:30. And if anything changes with anybody, we will just adjust, right? If anybody else besides Nicole can't make the meeting, then we don't have quorum. So let's just stay in touch. Because we're a month out, we can adjust maybe if we need to, or delay the meeting, postpone the meeting. But it seems like as solid a plan as we can have, knowing what life can throw. And I will extend the invite to that board, who does not have to meet quorum to hold a meeting.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about their numbers. Cool. Anything else? Any suggestions, additions to that agenda?
I mean, is there anything in particular we want to address with them? Or are they just sort of flies on the wall for our meeting?
No, I envision this as a conversation with their leadership about their direction, right? They don't have a formal strategic planning process, but they did have a retreat over the summer where they discussed a number of goals for their coming year. And their goals mostly exist around fundraising. So that feels like a relevant topic for this board to be aware of. Maybe we have questions, there's more that we want to understand about their process and their capacity and their ability to increase that capacity. Because if, I have to tell you as a member of this advisory board, if I feel that the library's primary fundraising body is struggling in any way, or they're buckling in any way, I want to know about that, because that is going to significantly affect the library's budget, ability to fund its programs, right? And I think of programs first and foremost because that is the largest area that is more commonly funded by operational funds. So I want to know how they're doing on an intimate level. And I do through my work as the liaison with them, but also for us to make those personal connections, for them to make those personal connections with us. I think it's a partnership worth strengthening. So if there are specific questions or topics or categories, I could see us talking about the budget reality, because we both need to know that information for different purposes. The strategic planning, if there's an update at that time,
Yep.
that would be useful information for our respective purposes. And then, yeah, really just kind of like a brainstorming, a little bit of brainstorming and hearing each other's visions and challenges in this moment.
Thanks, that's helpful context. I guess the only question I had was just around, is everything that we know okay for them to know? I guess so, right? Because these meetings are open to the public.
Yep.
There's not anything we have to be mindful of in that regard. And would they be coming as members of the public? Or would they be like a first agenda item, or how would we?
I think it would be, I think it would exist more like as a joint meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not an official city board, right? That maybe makes it a little different. They're not a board or a commission as far as that's recognized by the city. So I don't know. That might actually be a question of how that exists formally.
Can it be as a special guest?
The special guest is probably
I
what it
mean,
is.
functionally, that's what it is, and I feel like other boards or city entities can invite
Yes.
speakers, presenters.
I think that's how it'll exist.
Okay.
Not necessarily as a joint meeting, because even though we
Right.
know that's what it is, they'll be,
Right.
for the agenda, it'll be special guests, friends of the board.
I say joint meeting because I don't plan on it being like a 10-minute, everybody just introduce themselves and then they leave. And because by asking them to spend some time talking with us, I don't believe that they will have their regular board meeting, which would come a week after ours. So it would be in lieu of their meeting,
Right.
perhaps. That's up to them.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Excellent. Reports and info items. Back to you, librarian.
I actually have one question.
Yeah.
And this is not really the last agenda item, since you were talking about a joint meeting, but just kind of a little bit. Just a curiosity update on how the award went that they received.
So it was fun. Tracy and I were both there at that luncheon, and we had a front and center table, and they were the first actually presented with their award. It was cute. Sharon is the chair of the Friends Board, and she was a little nervous, I could tell, to get up there. They're allowed to say something up to 30 seconds, and I think she spoke for 10. So she was nervous, but that was good. And but the person who introduced the award pretty much read the nomination letter, basically word for word, that I think Cynthia initiated. I'm not sure who else worked on it, but that was good. And when that nomination shared just the amount of fundraising they do and some dollars put to it and some of the money raised at book sales, that got some crowd reaction, some gasps, so that was kind of funny. Like some wows, I guess, right? And we have Trace and I could grab some pictures and stuff too, so we can maybe share that. But it was good. Very happy. I had our marketing team kind of resend out, because they had done a press release for it before, so now it was after the fact, to kind of say they remind people they won this thing, which made it in the paper again. Thank you for asking.
Fabulous.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. And they have a nice, what do you call it? It's like a plaque.
Or is it like
It's a glass, no, it's heavy. Like a glass thing with it's etched in with their, anyway. I'm sure they'll put that somewhere prominent, I would hope. Okay. For direct report, I just have 3 things. 2 are, I think I've even brought this up, but I wanted to remind the group because on Sunday the 29th, we're doing a big event that day at the museum for book banning. What is it? Week? What am I trying to say? It's an event.
Banned Books Week.
Banned Books Week. Thank you. It has a name. It's getting late over here. Banned Books Week. So we're doing a big event at the museum on the 29th. I would love to see you all there if you can. I think it's at 2 or 2:30. It'll be a screening of a short documentary that's 20 minutes or 30 minutes called The ABCs of Book Banning, which was a Academy Award nominated short. That's just how good it was. And then following that is a group that we've had in the library here in years past. Basically it's sort of like performance art. They do readings of some books in the last year that were banned. It's kind of fun. And then there'll be a panel of a few people to sort of talk about book banning and maybe the film and different aspects of it, which will include a student from one of the high schools here, one of the school librarians, myself. I tried to get out of it, but I couldn't. And there's one other. Oh, a librarian who used to work for High Plains, who became well known for unfortunate reasons. That librarian was fired from High Plains a few years ago for refusing to not do an LGBTQ themed program, and essentially won that settlement. Part of that settlement was money, of course, but the other part of that settlement was that High Plains had to revise their policies to be more inclusive. So we invited her, to be honest, because it's, maybe not directly book banning, but certainly someone who would be fun to hear their thoughts on this. So anyway, 29th, I think you're supposed to register for it, so you can go on the website and find out. But and if it's not you, please share that out and let other people know. I think it'll be really good. And then in October 8th, Cy Montgomery, we're doing an author event funded by the Friends, of course. There'll be 2 programs because Cy Montgomery writes a lot on nature and animals, I believe, and there'll be a children's program earlier that day, and then that evening we'll be back at the museum, and that'll be Cy, just talking and reading, and I'm sure some Q&A opportunities, and a book signing, of course, if you are inclined to do that. So 2 big events coming up. For you to note and share. And speaking of sharing, I don't know if I remember to say this here, so I finally wrote it down. the library finally it's been a month or two now that we have an Instagram presence. Something that we've been wanting to do for a while, but with government bureaucracy, that's taken a little bit. I think that there's the potential for engagement with many more people, many more age groups exists within Instagram than it does on Facebook. That's not to say we're doing anything with Facebook. I think we just wanted to add Instagram. And so I want to mention that again for you to kind of seek that out and let all your friends and family know so that we get more people engaged on our Instagram presence. So that's it. Any questions?
Is that already up and going?
It is. It's been up for a couple months.
Okay.
If you can't find it, let Tracy or me know, and I can, however that works in social land, I'm sure I can
Who's
give you
managing
that.
that?
Our marketing team here, and they do really good. Like they update it regularly. There's good content as they do with Facebook.
Ooh, I found it. And actually, I didn't realize that the Friends of the Longmont Library had an Instagram account too. So
It's
There we go.
tiny and new, but yes, it exists.
Tiny, not shiny.
It is, yeah. We have more followers on Facebook.
So that's it for not much for my report, just because everything else was there
Yeah,
earlier. So you're
thank you. Any comments from y'all?
I'm so psyched about that event, the book banning event. I'm definitely gonna try and come. Is it kid friendly?
I don't see why it wouldn't be. I mean, I can't guarantee what any one panelist will say. The film, by the way, is like 100% interviews with school children in Florida commenting on book
Okay.
banning. So it's like,
Okay, my kids would love that. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so I would encourage it. I think it's definitely good and safe enough.
Very cool. I've actually been really impressed lately with the adult programming. I subscribe to the newsletter, and now I get a newsletter that is just adult programming. It's not everything. And so maybe there have been this wonderful diversity of offerings, and I just haven't seen them, but it seemed like there was an unusually high number of unique experiences being offered for adults in the coming couple of months. The Cy Montgomery thing I've known about, and I wonder if if there's anything around that event that would be an opportunity for the Friends to be more involved other than underwriting the event. Another way to engage them. So put a pin in that. But what is it? There's a philosophy discussion group that reads something and then talks about it from a philosophical standpoint. And the band book event. And there was something else. Oh, Coffee with the Coroner.
No.
I registered for like 5 things off of this one email. So
That's fantastic.
I don't know if this is like just doing regular things in new ways, or I don't know, I was just extra awake that day, but I love it. I love what feels like increased visibility around some pretty like non-generic kinds of programs to bring grown-ups into the library. So just wanted to mention that maybe you can look at those things. Maybe there will be a post on Instagram about Coffee with the Coroner.
I would think so.
All right, Friends of the Library, the sale. Here we go. These are all over the place now. On the library website, on the Friends website, but it starts Wednesday. And these sales they're a lot of work, they bring in a lot of money. We're routinely hitting the $10,000 mark now per sale. At last month's Friends Board meeting, they reported bookshop revenue over 7,000 for the month of July, which represented about a 25% increase from June. And they pass out the statistics, they track it over time for a few years, and it was definitely the highest revenue that I saw in a 1 month span of time being generated by that bookshop. Now, they had recently ramped up their signage, which made like the entire wall that's opposite the info desk where the adult fiction is stored. It's right before when you're walking toward the children's section. So maybe in the past it's a little unclear whether those were books for sale or if they were part of the collection. But whatever you want to attribute it to, $7,000 a month is fantastic. And again, these are hardworking volunteers. Every single day there are people downstairs in that garage, pulling the donations down, sorting through them, cleaning them, repairing them, pricing them, and adding them to the shelves. So awesome. This month I expect they will be continuing discussions around fundraising ideas. They want to reimagine their membership structure, which is currently, like $15 a year for a person, $30 for a couple or something like that. And really looking at breaking that out and doing more business and community sponsorships, doing different levels, and making the value of your membership feel a little heftier to entice you to join. So I look forward to seeing where that conversation goes. Maybe selling some special branded merchandise here in the library. They have that glass case where they have the boutique, the vintage or more valuable used book selections. They're thinking of adding some, I don't know what it will be yet, but not a sticker or a pen, or a bag, but something like a nice engraved tumbler or an embroidered hat or something.
Or like a whoopee cushion.
A whoopee cushion. Well, we have those already, don't we?
Well, that was last year's.
Yeah.
Last year's summer reading big thing.
Were they branded?
Oh yeah, they're branded.
That's awesome.
Yeah, everything.
Yes, it was very cool. It was so cool. I don't know who came up with it, but it was the greatest
It was
idea.
Cat Staff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Those are going to be good.
It was their idea and their effort. Yeah, this year it was yo-yos. They always have a big, that was, but then the previous year was the who knows?
Yeah. So my wish for this Friends Board is that they think about and also make explicit some goals for the next year instead of just doing the very good work that they do, like actually pick a number that you want to hit. That would be interesting. I don't know that they've done that. Yeah, that's next week. And that's it for Friends. Council. City Council Liaison. Yeah, what's happening?
So, budget, we're listening to all the budget reports. I don't know if anybody had seen or heard about the council meeting that went on until 2:15 in the morning.
No.
We were just in the county's proposal to take a regional approach to increase the minimum wage. And so we heard that presentation, as well as the Modern West 2, which is the property just east of the airport. And they were looking to build, we are actually going to be declining that because of the proximity to the airport and the fact that they wanted to add, this higher, I think 3 or 4 stories of apartments or townhomes. And it just, considering the path of the flight zone, it just didn't seem very safe. So we're now going through that whole process to do a denial for that annexation as well as the development of that property. So that was a big one. And I think sleep-wise, I'm still trying to recover. The pattern's been the same since. So that, the other thing, and this is kind of off, but it was still in line of what I was doing at City. So I did this activity with the kids over at Countryside Village, Longmont Park, and we did a paint by numbers with arts and public places. So that was an example. So they had these giant canvases that were 40 by 40 and got to do the painting. Some of them came out great. Some of them need some touch-up. So we're working on them. And so at Art Walk, the kids got to, anyone who came got to see their product, as well as having canvases there for people to paint as they came. And so that will be we'll also have a booth at Roosevelt's, Rhythm at Roosevelt, which is this Saturday. So the 21st, it came up really fast. I was not anticipating that. So yeah, we're wrapping that up. So as and I did this on my capacity as liaison to Arts and Public Places. So I do that one as well. So any opportunity, if you need me to get out, I'm a traveling council member, I can and support. I do plan on being there at on the 29th for the banned books event. I definitely support that, especially being an educator and having people tell you can't make those decisions. But okay. And and I'm trying to think what else did we. Again, everything is budget. This tomorrow night is our study session, so it's all budget presentation, and just kind of looking through all the nuances that are impacting our budget. It sounds like our CFO is just really making some cautious decisions at this time. So my hope is that once we have some answers, I believe it is Initiative 50, and I wrote it down somewhere, and 108. So if they do not pass, I know the state did some tweaking with the language, but it's still going to be going to the voter. But the changes that the state made in their Senate bills to revise Initiative 80 and 108 would really focus on being less burdensome for public schools. I don't think it had a lot of bearing on what municipalities, what local governments would feel. So I think it's just kind of relooking at the tax piece. I mean, property taxes are going up because the assessed value of the house is going up. The assessed value of the house is going up because the market is skyrocketing. So if people can't afford homes, and people who've been in their homes, who maybe purchased their house for $80,000, are having to pay a property tax of an assessed value of $500,000. So having to make up that difference, I think, has been sticker shock for a lot of, especially our senior residents who are on fixed income. So we've been just kind of talking through all that. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me. Seems like most of the talk is either housing or tax or budget. There's a lot of that going on. We made some changes to our land code to help hopefully incentivize for sale, low-income housing and middle-income housing. So we're trying to incentivize that for developers to get out there and actually create these for purchase, the low market rate homes. And yes,
Does that include getting rid of the option for them to buy themselves out of that? You know, like where they can pay more to not have to make as many low-income units?
yeah, so the fee, the cash in lieu.
Yeah.
Yes, so that, it will, yes. So anybody who creates the 12% affordable housing on site can actually will have a better benefits. So if you opt to, to just provide fee in lieu, there's still, they have to go through the whole public hearing process. They have to go through the, I think we were looking to streamline the process, so it'll just be, if you provide the housing on site, it can go through an administrative process. So it'll still have the public process, the public input, but it won't necessarily have to come to council and public and planning and zoning. If it meets all the criteria and they don't ask for a variance, then goes straight through administrative level, and it shaves off months of the process for them. And that, time is money. So we're hoping that will incentivize that part.
Okay, so we can't get rid of cash in lieu, but we're trying to de-emphasize it and encourage.
Yes. So
Carrot, not stick.
Yeah. So what happened, and I learned this historically. So back when I think it was in 2012, council at that time rescinded the 12% affordable housing.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, they brought it back. But the only way that it would pass is if the people who were for bringing back affordable housing or affordable housing developments, that they had to concede and allow for a cash in lieu option. So I would like to revisit it and eliminate it. But it also sounds like there's probably several on council who don't see eye to eye with that. So then now we're trying to, we'll keep that policy, but let's try to make the other process more cost, more feasible and quicker to get these properties out there.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. If you have any questions or anything else, let me know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone have any library profession or Longmont news to share?
Well, there was a headline today. I think you might have just mentioned it earlier, but Colorado Library fired employee for speaking out about cancellation of Pride event, lawsuit alleges. Lawsuit not the first time Weld County's High Plains Library District has been accused of retaliation. So, I don't know if this is the same person who's coming to the event.
Nope.
No, this is another person?
No,
Great.
and I was going, this was, I'm glad you brought it up. I was most certainly going to bring this up as library profession and local news. No,
Read the Denver Post. Yay.
Yeah, I came from the Denver Post, but High Plains is, I don't know what's going on there, but there was some other, and you can read it, it was in today, or someone just shared the link. So anyway, it was an LGBTQ event. I think they were partnering with UNC, and the director, for some reason, I think, pulled the library out of that event. And one of the associate directors wrote some comment or letter about it, and then after that was fired. So that associate director is planning to, or is currently going to sue the district for that too. So I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just so unreal. I don't know what's going on there. I don't really know their director real well. He hasn't been there very long. But you know that there's two things that were both LGBTQ plus related events that were not handled well, and staff who were doing the right thing seemingly are getting fired over it. So yeah, that's the news there. But did you have something to add to that, Susie?
I'm curious. They are a special district, correct?
Yes.
So is it the board, so the board of the special district or their trustees or their governing entity, are they the ones who are setting these policies?
I was just about to ask the same thing, if it was coming from the executive director, if it was coming from the board.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, beside what the article just says that she wrote to the board of directors about her concerns, and then neither the library district nor the community voiced any discontent with the event or gave her reason to believe it would not continue. And then basically this person, Hort.
That's their director, Matthew Hort.
Okay, yeah, so he seems to be kind of making some sort of like unilateral decision around it, because UNC stopped hearing from them apparently after they spoke to Hort.
Yeah, and Susie, to answer your question, it might depend. I don't know if every library district, special district, does things the same. I know at the very basic level, in those situations, the boards they hire the director, and they have 100% oversight of the budget. So the budget, they are responsible for that. Now, when you get down into library policies, I'm a little uncertain whether the library creates that, if the board has to approve it, or if it's more like what would happen here, where I would share policies with this board and get a motion, but effectively it's still my role to decide whether that's a policy or not. I don't know if the boards of a district have that responsibility as well.
Okay.
They would definitely have input.
The board, is the board elected?
Yes.
Or are they, okay. So that's theoretically you could vote them out if you don't like their behavior. But anything like that, so the lawsuit is then not against the city, the lawsuit is against him as an individual or the board as a whole. I'll have to look that up.
It looks like it's against the district.
So it'd be like if someone's suing the city.
Yeah.
And we've had,
yeah, it's not.
But it does, this article does make it seem like he decided this unilaterally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is what happened to Brookie Parks here a few years ago in a similar-ish situation. So yeah, I don't know. More on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was the only profession.
I'm gonna go look that up. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's on the Denver Post. It's a fascinating article.
And that was relatively recent.
I just put it in the chat.
Instance. Right, but I mean the incident that they're referring to about the
it's within the last year.
Okay.
This article in Denver Post was today.
Right.
No, but when the activity happened of this letter writing, a suit.
Yeah.
It wasn't
in
5 years
2023.
ago.
No.
It
was
like
May of 2023.
Yeah.
This one, this one lawsuit made the news, and then other people are coming out of the woodwork from previous eras to say, oh yeah, it was happening in the 70s too, or something.
No.
This is still
It's now.
Okay.
It's now.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah.
Any comments from the board? Or any other attendee in this room? All right.
I'll see if I can find the actual complaint that she's filed, just if anybody's interested.
Well, yeah.
I will put in a plug for an email that I saw from Tracy, but it originated with the city, about the vacancies in the boards and commissions, and an invitation to apply. So as you probably know, we still have a vacancy on this board, and this window coming up in October, right? Is it October? Where somebody would be,
Well, that's when they, I think, start calling for
They start,
applications
okay.
and, I don't know.
anyway, stuff's happening. Please forward, go on the city's website, or if you received that email as well, please.
You emailed the whole board.
Yeah, I sent it
Yeah,
to
was
the
it?
board, and it starts now, the application process is open, and it goes through October 18th, and that's when they'll start the interview process.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends that you like.
Yeah, who also like the library.
Not just any friend.
And I love
It doesn't look like it's on the city's Facebook page yet.
Facebook.
That would be really helpful to be able to share.
Yes,
Right,
and
right.
it is on the Instagram though. I went and looked.
Ooh.
Oh wait, there it is. There it is. Okay, 5 days ago, yeah, Dawn did a video, stars in a video about it. That's helpful.
On Facebook too, Katie?
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
Just to go back to the previous conversation, I did find the complaint. You can read it. I posted the link.
Yeah, it's in the chat, which I can send it out because you're not on Zoom right now.
No, not at all, but thank you. All right. Yeah, thank you. We're going to close this meeting at 8:49. Next meeting's the 21st. I didn't ask for anyone to volunteer for the icebreaker because I think we'll do that a little bit differently with our special guests. And look forward to seeing you all.